Welcome back to the United Pubcast. Something a little bit different today. As we do each year, we have a look back at the Munich air disaster and the Busby babes, those who lost their lives, those who survived, and what they went on to achieve in their personal lives, and obviously the club's success and the club's future in the aftermath of Munich. But I always think it is important to just sort of do this in regards to looking back and having a bit of a chat. I'm sure some other channels or the bigger channels will say a bit of a 30-second spiel at the start of the video, at the start of their show, and then move on to should we bring Mason Greenwood back or you Eric Ten Hag in, Eric Ten Hag out. Then we can have those discussions, but we can have those tomorrow. Those discussions aren't going anywhere. I think on today, you do need to show a little bit more sort of time and respect and gratitude and all those words to those who did live, not just lose their lives in Munich, but as I said, the survivors and what they went on to contribute to Manchester United. So unfortunately, Larry's not with us, so I will rely on all you guys in the chat just to, I don't know what, as I said, I'm just going to wing it a little bit in regards to sort of whatever comes up, whatever your opinions, insights, memories, etc., of stuff you've heard, footage, photos, throw them all in the chat. And we'll just have a bit of a, chat just away from football, because football and Manchester United currently stresses us out far too much these days. And we take it, I don't want to say far too seriously, but when you do put it into perspective, cast your mind back to, none of us were alive at the time, but cast your mind back 66 years ago, it wasn't this serious. Now, it was obviously, unfortunately, life and death. They did pay with their lives, unfortunately. But in terms of the way we view football now and sell this player, sack this player, and we're so invested in it, at the end of the day, some things are more important than football. It doesn't feel like it at times. But sometimes it takes moments like this and incidences like this to look back and remember that, yes, we do take it a bit too serious at times. So I thought just a day to sort of step back and look at a few things, talk about one or two, not memories, but stuff you've obviously researched over the years, and just sort of pay your respects. So if you're in the live chat, get any opinions, thoughts, topics, etc., in and around whether those who passed or, as I said, those who survived, because I often feel somewhat, not disrespectful, but in regards to, it's hard to, we always focused on the 8 players who passed away. Well, there are other people who passed away as well, but we focus selfishly on the players, and that's not to show any disrespect to the other people who passed. But I also look at a huge part of the Munich story is not the players who passed away. It is Sir Bobby Charlton. It is Harry Gregor. It is those people who went on. It's who I still view as Busby babes, is not so much, well, obviously the people who did die, but who Jimmy Murphy brought through and who Sir Mark Busby brought through in the following 10 years to go and win the European Champions League. That, to me, is also the Busby babes. And that is just as big a part of the story. A lot of people do say there's no greater story told than that of Manchester United. And I do believe that is just as big a part and just as important as those people who unfortunately did pass away. But good to see Rob in the chat. Hope all is well. I watched that movie, right? Actually, that's might be where I start. I watched that movie today. A bit of a tradition in this household in regards to on the 6th of February, or close to it, but I was able to watch it today, the movie United. I don't know if you can Google it, if that'll come up, but just type United and Munich and it'll come up. I'm sure every second movie seems like it's called United. I've seen about 10 movies that have been titled United, but I'm not sure why it's not sort of more universally sort of recognised as what a brilliant movie it is. It would look like not a low budget movie, but a low budget movie. I think it was done by the BBC back in 2011. I'm just sitting there for 2 hours just crying. Like literally, I had to hold my hands up. Unfortunately, just 2 hours just watching it in tears, and it's a brilliant movie. I'd watch it again tomorrow. It's one of those things, and the story, the acting is brilliant in it. As I said, not the memories because I wasn't alive back then. But you look back and think what it would have been like. Like you can't look at it now. Touch wood, it's not going to happen. You hate to even think about it, but just the reality of the situation. Could you imagine Man United are playing away in Italy next week, and not that we're in the Champions League, but you know what I mean? And we come back and something happens, and we're having a discussion. Kobe Mainu has passed away, so like you can't fathom what that would feel like. Marcus Rashford has got Rasmus Højlund. These players, Eric Ten Hag. You can't fathom it. This is what happened then, and I just. You can't. You imagine that I was reading a letter earlier today. I think it was sent to, who was it? Might have been to Tommy Taylor. I might bring it up. I might be able to find it. Someone sent a kid sent a letter. Actually, it was to Duncan Edwards, I believe. In that 2 week period where he hadn't passed away, he was still fighting in hospital. a letter was sent from a kid, I think in Manchester potentially, or in his hometown of Dudley, sort of sending him a message, get well, to his hospital bed in Munich. And you just think stuff like that, like think of the messages and the outpouring of emotion we would have towards the current group. Well, that's what these were superstars back in the day as well, to people growing up in that era. So it does put a lot of things into perspective. But we'll go through the individual players. As I said, sometimes I somewhat feel not disrespecting the other people who died, but there were other staff, there were reporters, the journalists, the pilots, etc., who passed away. But we do focus on those 8 players, rightly or wrongly. That is just what we do. And so anything to do bring up in here is obviously not disrespecting anyone who sort of we're not mentioning. You do go through the 8 players. We obviously had Billy Whelan, Tommy Taylor, David Peck, Mark Jones. Mark Jones has obviously played extremely well in that United movie. Obviously got Duncan Edwards, who didn't die in the crash. It was obviously 15 days after the Munich air disaster. He couldn't overcome the injuries, so he is classed as a casualty in this disaster, but obviously did die a little bit over 2 weeks later. And you got Eddie Coleman, Roger Byrne, the captain, and obviously Jeff Bent. So those 8 players are the ones who passed away. The other staff members, you got Walter Crickmeyer, Tom Curry, who was a coach, and obviously Bert Wiley as well. So obviously 3 other staff members passed away as well. So I'll go through 1 or 2 things in regards to sort of maybe images I find pop up sort of thing. And as I said, just in the chat, I'm going to wing it a little bit and also have a chat, I think, quite fitting in regards to the type of content that I like to put out there or like to discuss in regards to the pubcast. And this is definitely one of them, but it's correlation with YouTube and what I think about the future of the pubcast as well. And I'd love to get your thoughts because it's not just me and Larry sitting here talking, it's obviously you guys getting involved as well. So I'll sort of share 1 or 2 thoughts I have on that as well and what I'm thinking potentially going into the future for the pubcast and these type of chats, because look, they're not the chats you want to have. You want to be having far more positive discussions around buying a fantastic player or winning 3 points or getting a trophy. But I just think this once a year, this is just as important to look back. But Rob here saying this part of our history is what makes United special. I do look back at it. Look, it's 30 years before I was born, but 1 or 2 things pop up where they quotes or images or stories or sort of interviews. And I had no idea about this before I chose Manchester United as my club, or Manchester United was given to me as my club. But looking back, Munich is the reason, and the incidents around Munich is the reason I support Manchester United. And it's just, it is a powerful sort of moment in history which will live on. Obviously, the players have passed away, but Manchester United today, whatever we think of the current sort of team on the pitch, it is the greatest football club in the world, and that is off the back of unfortunate tragedy. But Rob making the point, it is on Prime. I wasn't aware of that. Actually, I probably have, but I do have it on DVD. But if anyone does have Amazon Prime, type in United and have a box of tissues because it's horrendous viewing. Like, it is extremely sad to watch. So you know what's going to happen, and but it's definitely worth watching if you haven't watched it. I watch it every 6th of February. Mum, good to see you. Obviously, I watched it last year. I'm sure she'll be watching it in the coming days. Matt, good to see you, mate. Says need to see it, mate. It is just it's a good movie as well. Like, just in regards to I believe the acting, the correlation in regards to the likeliness of the actors to who they were portraying in the movie, I thought was very well done. The perception of football at the time in regards to the boots, the pitches, the balls, what you would imagine a team talk being like. Traveling with friends sort of thing. They're obviously young men sort of traveling the world, being superstars, playing for Manchester United, and what that would have looked like back in 1958 compared to now in 2024. So regardless of the story and what it means to us, the movie itself, just someone who doesn't watch Manchester United or doesn't watch football would still get something extremely beneficial out of the movie. So definitely get onto that. But Stephen, good to see you. Live chat finally working. Dad talked about it being a defining moment of his love for this team. He was a young teen when it happened, and he had strong emotions talking of the day it happened. Yeah, I still remember my grandfather, Jack, Mum would be in the chat, and he wasn't he liked football. He always enjoyed watching it, but he was sort of a rugby union and rugby league man. But I always spoke to him and said, like, just in regards to simple, how did you get the news sort of thing back in the 50s? Did you hear about them? This was obviously in Sydney, Australia. Did you hear about the Munich disaster? And even he said, yeah, that was news here. That was big news here. That was not just football fans in England. That did make its way all the way here, and obviously did sort of hit home. Definitely. So it is a powerful one moment in time, but obviously in specific to Manchester United history. Definitely. So, as I said, that United movie, if you haven't watched it, definitely go watch it. I definitely think that is worth. And the main reason, someone who wasn't even involved in the crash, and this is why I say part of the Busby Babes and the Munich air disaster, it's not just, unfortunately, about the people who passed away. It's people who survived, and this wasn't even a survivor. This is someone in and around the situation. Jimmy Murphy, the way he's portrayed, he's obviously a key character in the film. And forget the film, a key character in what happened, obviously, in regards to the future of Manchester United. But watching that film, going back and we obviously know the impact he had, but the challenges he would have faced on and off the pitch in the aftermath of Munich. Jimmy Murphy, we talk about the hero of Munich in regards to Harry Gregg, the importance of him. How can you not, in regards to going back in the plane, the people he survived, sort of helped get out of the crash in regards to the mother and daughter, obviously dragging Matt Busby out in the month of his injuries. But Jimmy Murphy, he should have he should be knighted, but obviously he now has a statue outside Old Trafford, outside the Stretford end, which I think is fitting. But the way they portray Jimmy Murphy in the film is brilliant. Like the way he carried Manchester United in the aftermath of that crash and what the Football League wanted to do to Manchester United. We talk about Sir Bobby Charlton, Harry Gregg, Sir Matt Busby, go on to the team who went on to win the European Cup. 100% huge parts of this story and sort of the bedrock behind Munich and Manchester United's sort of future. Jimmy Murphy is the man. He's the man who, I don't want to say sort of ranking people and putting them in tiers on who comes out top in regards to dealing with Munich. I definitely don't want to do that, and I'm not doing that. But if you had to, Jimmy Murphy. Manchester United would not be the club it is without him and what he did on and off the pitch. So I do believe in regards to these discussions, we talk about Duncan Edwards, we talk about Harry Gregg, and of course, rightly so, I do believe Jimmy Murphy's name needs to be talked about a lot more in regards to just the effort, the commitment, the ability, the actual job he did. Obviously, just as a football person, but the job he did, given the circumstances, like it is unbelievable. Stephen making the point here. Jimmy Murphy is a Manchester United knight, never apologised for calling him so. Yeah, no, not apologise. It just sort of rolls off the tongue. Then you realise it's not when you're talking about Sir Matt Busby, Sir Bobby Charlton, Sir Alex Ferguson. Definitely. But any thoughts, opinions? As I said, I will maybe bring up one or two things. I've just got the Man United website open and I'll have a look at a few things. I do want to bring one thing up on Duncan Edwards, if I can find it, in regards to just what you talk about, sort of stories and iconic moments. There's a photo I'll bring up, if I can find it, of Duncan Edwards, which I find myself looking for hours. Sort of every 6th of February I look, and I'll just bring it up here in regards to, this is obviously the 5-4 match against Arsenal at Highbury before the crash. Signing an autograph for an Arsenal fan. Here it is here. And I just think Duncan Edwards is probably where we'll start in regards to the players. As I said, we won't go through all the players. That's not to be disrespectful. But obviously Duncan Edwards' story, especially the way it's portrayed in that film, as I mentioned, the United movie, just in regards to, you go back and read what Sir Bobby Charlton, Sir Matt Busby, and fans at the time who did watch Duncan Edwards, what we talk about now, who's the greatest? Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, of course, who's Manchester United's best? Sir Bobby Charlton, Ryan Giggs, George Best, all these players, Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney. You can have all these discussions. It just seems everyone who saw Duncan Edwards play, and I think it has got to the stage, sometimes you think, well, maybe it's just a respect thing in regards to someone who's passed away. Sometimes you pump their tyres a little bit more. I think to the level people go who sort of do have first-hand experience of witnessing Duncan Edwards, the levels they do go to, you do believe it is true in regards to what he was doing, what he was achieving, and the future he had in the game. What he would have done at Manchester United is, look, you don't want to say a shame. Of course it's a shame. We know it's a shame that these players lost their lives. But I think that's an iconic photo just in regards to what Manchester United is. Okay, this is an Arsenal fan by all reports. At Highbury, you can see the clock in the background of the photo. But just the size of the guy, what he was sort of doing from his area in the pitch. Obviously, football tactically is a very different game now, but sort of driving forward and sort of being that main man, I do believe, Duncan Edwards is someone who, unfortunately, we do look at, he died 15 days later after the crash. It's just sad. So I'll bring up here, Man United have put a little piece on each player. I think there just was one or two things. where was it? There was one quote or something I did want to bring out, but I forget where it was. But after 6 months, Edwards made his first team debut, and then on the 16th. Then the 16-year-old became first-team favourite, claiming the number 5 shirt, a defensive midfielder who broke up opposition attacks only to surge forward. Edwards became the youngest post-war England international in 1955 at 18 years and 183 days. In a single season, he played this one. In a single season, he played over 100 matches, making appearances for his club, his country, and the National Service Regiment. You look at now and the physical demands we place on these players, or football places on these players. And we rightfully have debates in regards to it's too much. It's too much football, and we can argue what it is. But you look back then, 100 matches in a season, and it's not just 100 matches. You look at what they're playing on in terms of they're not having a good recovery. He's probably having a whiskey after the game and sort of going out, and probably you could join Marcus Rashford in regards to a few drinks. Like the professionalism just wasn't there. Now, obviously he's a very good athlete, but just in regards to recovery, the pitches they were playing on, to play 100 games, what are players crying about now? And I don't want to say crying about in a bad way, but what are players sort of discussing now in regards to 50 games, and rightly so. I'm sitting here and not disagreeing with those players, but back there playing 100 matches and being the best player in 100 of those matches, I just think in regards to, of course, it's a shame, but just what a shame. What we could have witnessed and what English football could have witnessed and what Manchester United unfortunately could have achieved, because you do look back at that and I often say we're very proud of our 3 European Cups, and rightly so I am. Okay, it's not what Liverpool have, I'm aware, but I still am very proud of the 3 European Cups, being able to witness 2 of them. Obviously didn't witness the one in 68, but you do look back and Real Madrid won 5 European titles in that era. I just think this team was tipped. We had the best players, the best manager, very well tipped to go on and sort of win the European Cup at that time. If it wasn't Real Madrid and Manchester United was that team to go win, let's not even say 5. Let's say we won 3 or 4 titles in that era, in that 10-year period from 58 to 68. You win 3, 4, 5 European titles, suddenly we're on 8, potentially going near 10 Champions League titles now, and we're having a discussion about Manchester United and Real Madrid. If you take those 5 off Real Madrid, do they have their current total? No. If you add 5 to Manchester United, we're a hell of a lot closer. So again, it's if buts and maybes, and that's how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. But just what could have been with that team, so hotly tipped to go on and achieve greatness. It is such a shame, but Stephen here saying Duncan may never have been able to achieve the types of numbers, but I believe he was the blueprint for United players for years to come. Well, yeah, everything you do read about him, he's just what a Manchester United player is, or what sort of we envisage when a new signing comes in or a young academy player. It kind of is, the blueprint is the term you use there. I'll tend to agree that is potentially on the money. Now, obviously, great teams and Manchester United legends don't have to be as good as Duncan Edwards, or don't have to play in that position or play the game in that manner. To be great, you don't have to do that. But it's the standard. It's what should be sort of players and fans to strive for. So, Duncan Edwards, I do think blueprint is a sort of fitting word there. My mum here saying, I can remember standing with you in front of that clock at Old Trafford when you were a teenager. It was a very emotional experience. That's not the clock. I know what you mean, Mum. That's not that clock. That's the photo there is at Arsenal. Actually, we have been at Arsenal, me and Mum, the old Highbury. We would have seen that clock. But the clock obviously at the Munich tunnel outside Old Trafford, just at the sort of on the corner as you're walking down St Matt Busby Way, just to the left, that first corner of the stadium. You do have the Munich clock and the Munich tunnel, which is obviously where the service will take place today. So that goes into our next point. We'll touch on players, as I said in the live chat. Throw any sort of opinions, topics, anything you want me to look up, bring up, any images, etc., and I'll happily do so. But that is sort of where I wanted to sort of go next before we sort of go back and look at maybe 1 or 2 players. Harry Gregg, so I want to touch on as well. But the current team, Manchester United are going to have a service today. I would assume Bruno Fernandes, Erik ten Hag, Mark Skinner, the women's coach, and Katie Zellin, the women's captain, they'll be present like they were last year. It was Harry Maguire last season, with Bruno Fernandes and Erik ten Hag this season. And look, this is not me shitting on anything. That is good. I'm happy with that. I like to see that. Me being selfish, I do want to see more. And yet I do want to see Manchester United make more of an effort in regards to current players having and again, is this PR? Like, if a player is there just bored out of their brain and not taking anything in, is that worse than is that sort of doing more harm than good? Like in regards to, you know what I mean? Like it is PR. Like I do want to see this from a PR point of view. Not so much PR. I do want players to buy into it. So whether they buy into it or not, I do kind of want to see it. But if they're not fully invested in it, well, it's not really worth it, and that's quite disrespectful. So I understand pros and cons into not doing it, but I do think Manchester United players should every season. Now you can't visit Munich every season in regards to the fixture congestion of the fixture list. I'm aware of that, especially around the anniversary. But whether it be at Old Trafford or I do think Old Trafford, but whether it be Carrington, do something visual and visible for the fans to see every year. Now, unfortunately, just in the cynical world we live in, we might see through it. And if we're in a bad patch of results, we'll say it's PR sort of thing. But forget that. I do think it should be done. As said, Bruno Fernandes, Eric Ten Hag, Mark Skinner, Katie Zellum will be there today. And I said, I like that. I think that is the right thing. Keep doing that, of course. I want to see the whole team there. Now, again, the logistics of that, I'm aware that maybe that's not possible. Maybe someone who works in logistics at Old Trafford could say, Tom, that's an absolute nightmare. You can't do that. If you bring down 25 superstars from Manchester United, you're going to have 3,000 people flocking down to Old Trafford holding signs, Marcus Rashford, can I have your shirt? Bruno, can I have an autograph, sort of thing. I understand. Now, you would think 9 times out of 10 people attending anything in regards to Munich would have a lot more sort of dignity and respect and sort of respect in the moment. But again, if thousands of people are going to go there, you don't know how it is going to react. So I'm aware the logistics might be hard in regards to getting the whole first team outside Old Trafford on a sort of Tuesday afternoon. I'm aware that could be a little bit tricky. Do it inside the ground. Remember the 60th anniversary when Jose Mourinho was in charge. There was a big service inside Old Trafford. I think that. Now, again, there might. I don't want to point this at the Glazers. Could that come at a cost in regards to setting up the big screen and the stage at Old Trafford? Yeah, it's going to come at a cost. It's going to get the players, instead of going home after training at 11 o'clock in the morning, they're going to have to come to Old Trafford. Some players might not want that. Well, okay, you might not want that, but you do want your 200K a week. You can go sit in the stand and sort of pay your respects for half an hour once a year. So I do think Manchester United should do more. Again, there are challenges, and there might be valid reasons as to why that can't happen, especially from a visual point of view. But I do believe Manchester United should be doing far more. What they're doing is good. They should do more, in my opinion. And one of the things I do think they should be doing a hell of a lot more of, again, sponsors and money talks. We want to see this, but money will obviously dictate things. But I've made this point before with Larry as well in regards to, now we did lose the match, but we do look back at the 2008 Manchester derby on the 50th anniversary. The kits, Manchester United wore a kit without a sponsor, just a white collar, iconic. Now, unfortunately, we did lose the match. It would be far more iconic if we did happen to go on and get the win. Now, we did win the Premier League and the Champions League that season, which obviously very fitting. So Bobby Charlton obviously leading Manchester United up the steps in Moscow. But you do look back at that kit. I just don't know why Manchester United don't do that every year. Now, again, I know Adidas, TeamViewer, Chevrolet, whoever, do pay a lot of money to have their logo on the kit. I'm aware of that. But I think when Omar Barada or whoever is going into the next negotiations, surely you can factor that in. One game a season, you're not going to get your logo on our kit. Just one game a season. You don't want it, well, you're not going to get the other 50 games a season. I do think Manchester United should work, and it won't happen. I'm aware. I'm talking all brick wall. I'm aware of that. But Manchester United should do far more because and again, it's a visual thing. Like it kind of means nothing, sort of thing. Like, it's just a kit. But I do think in terms of spreading that message and just awareness, and it's a good kit. It's better than any of the nonsense thrown at us at the moment. So one, it's a good kit. I prefer that plain kit compared to something sort of bombarded with sponsors. But again, I'm aware Adidas will want their logo on it. But even you could put Adidas maybe just on the back collar. Just something like it could be sold as an Adidas kit. They could still they'll probably make more money doing that. So, and look, that's not, you don't want someone making money of a tragedy like this, but you could spin it like that. And half the proceeds or a quarter of the proceeds could go to this charity or this charity. And again, I'm fully aware the real world and the finances involved, it's not going to happen. And I just think it should. Some people disagree with me, but that's the way I do view what Manchester United should be doing a lot more of. One, the kits on the closest game to the Munich anniversary at Old Trafford, and obviously the players in regards to services at Old Trafford on the day. just want to see more of a presence there. Well, we did see when Manchester United went to Munich at the start of the Champions League campaign, Rasmus Højlund and Erik ten Hag and Bruno Fernandes, I believe, went to Manchester Platz to pay their respects later, which is great, and fans were there at the time. They interacted with the fans. And again, if you took the whole Manchester United squad there when there was 200 fans there, it's going to be an environment and a situation not the most sort of respectful. It's going to be loud, it's going to be noisy, it's going to be people clamoring for photos and autographs sort of thing. So I'm aware you can't just say, okay, all rock up at Old Trafford or all rock up at the Munich site and all the fans are just going to sit back and let the players sort of pay their respects. That's not going to happen in the real world. I'm aware of that. But I still just want to see it. If there is a way to work around it, I do believe Manchester United should explore it. But Stephen here with the comment, one sec. I always felt that you can get a pulse of the team by who turns up for the memorial. I don't want to throw speculation here, but I feel like this is an integral part of playing for the badge. But that's what I think in regards to this one. I think Bruno Fernandes and Erik ten Hag will be there today. Brilliant. Does that mean Diogo Dalot doesn't care? Does that mean Scott McTominay cares? What happens if the captain was, just say, Alexis Sanchez was back United, he was the captain. Not to throw Alexis Sanchez personally under the bus, but he was the captain and he was next to Erik ten Hag. Does that mean Alexis Sanchez is the one who cares? And again, I know Steve's not pointing that, but I think that is one of the challenges when only one or two people show up. Subconsciously, it makes you question everyone else. Well, why aren't they there? And that's where I think just bring everyone. And then, look, we might play forensic analysis there and we're going to look at all the people lining up. So he cares, he doesn't. Maybe that the cynical nature wrongly would come out in that aspect. But I do agree. I do play that as well. When I see a social media post, maybe someone doesn't do it, you think, oh, hang on, is he running his account or is his PR team running it and they've forgotten? These are things Manchester United fans, it does rack our brain. So, yeah, I'm 100% with you there. This club is for the people. The team need to walk with the people. And that is, I think, yeah, it is one sort of, I can't think of many other environments, many other situations where it can be a sort of subdued situation, atmosphere. I have seen it before. We did see in the 60th anniversary when they were walking in and out of the ground. There weren't, now obviously, as I said, because I do think 9 times out of 10 people will show their respects. But when people were watching the players go in the ground, the 60th anniversary, it wasn't people shouting at them saying, come over here for a photo, come over here for an autograph. That wasn't the situation. The fans sat back or stood back behind a barrier at least, and the players did walk past, a little bit of a wave, but it was a respectful sort of situation. So I do think it can be done, and I don't think there are other situations that it can be done. You can't go to the Trafford Centre for an autograph session and have everyone just sort of standing there in a nice civil manner. It's chaos when that happens. It'll be a circus. I do think Munich is the one time where fans and players can almost stand side by side and just act like adults. And not to say they're not adults in other situations, but it can be done. Now, I'm aware of the risk where someone makes an idiot, and that is the story. Again, and maybe that risk is too much, and that is why the club doesn't do it. But I do believe 9 times out of 10, a situation can be done where players and fans are side by side with one goal in mind, and that one goal is to obviously pay respects to those who lost their lives. And I said at the start, not just those who lost their lives, those who survived. A huge part of that movie, I said the movie / just the story in general, Harry Gregg, Sir Bobby Charlton. Now, this is unfortunately, the first anniversary without Sir Bobby Charlton. Sir Bobby Charlton has unfortunately had to sort of live on. It picks up well in the movie in regards to guilt. He did carry a lot of guilt. He was a young player coming through and saying, a simple question as to why these people passed away, why my friends passed away and not me. They're better than me, that they need to carry Manchester United forward. Why is this the case? So Matt Busby carried a lot of guilt in regards to he wanted to rush the team back, not rush the team back, but he sort of signed up to agree to the Football League fixtures and was under the pump and said, no, we need to get back today. And he said, if we just took an extra day and took the fine or whatever, we wouldn't have flown and the incident would have happened. It wouldn't have happened. So the guilt these people would have subconsciously lived with going forward. Look, I'm sure a lot of people have had sort of extremely sort of tough times throughout their lives, and this is sort of no different, but this is almost just my feeling around the situation would be an extreme measure of it, an extreme measure of that guilt. So Harry Gregg is obviously, I mentioned Jimmy Murphy, obviously, but a little been overlooked in my opinion in regards to Munich. But Harry Gregg as well. Now, obviously, Harry Gregg didn't stay for the 68 European Cup final. Obviously, Alex Stepney had come in by then. And but Harry Gregg obviously came in just before the Munich air disaster, I believe. And he obviously was a great goalkeeper and was very successful for Manchester United, very sort of well regarded. And he's very interestingly portrayed in the movie in regards to a little bit of a lone figure in the dressing room in regards to the players all got on. And again, how sort of real this is, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's quite accurate in regards to the research that would have happened. But he's very much, okay, the players were here and the goalkeeper was here, and it's quite a personality clash. These young players were quite jovial, having a joke, a bit of banter here and there. Harry Gregg was 100% business and didn't really want to concern himself with some young kids having a bit of a laugh and a joke. But then when push comes to shove and the plane is on fire and you never know what risk of an explosion happening, Harry Gregg was straight back into the plane and pulling Sir Matt Busby out, pulling a mother and a daughter out and a child out. And I brought this up every time we do this podcast and look back at Munich. We all like to believe that we would be brave in sort of the face of adversity and be able to do things and sort of show signs of strength and be able to sort of help people in that situation. We can all sit here, and I sit here now and say, yes, I would. You just don't know. You don't know what would be going through your mind if you've been in a plane crash, it's on fire, and going back in. Like, we can sit here and say, yeah, I would do the right thing. So Bobby Charlton carried that guilt in regards to saying, I couldn't do what Harry Gregg did. I saw him going in. I couldn't do it. I helped on the outside, but I just didn't have that in me. And Harry Gregg sort of always speaks about that was no criticism of anyone else. He says that is not a slight on their personality or their character. It's just what it is. It's just the way the mind works in tragedy and in those tough circumstances. But you do look what Harry... If he doesn't pull Sir Matt Busby out, and now no life is more important than anyone else's, but in regards to the story of Manchester United, Sir Matt Busby is an important figure. You could tier him a little bit more important than others. If he wasn't pulled out, what would the next 5-10 minutes look like for Sir Matt Busby? You just don't know. And that is off the back of the bravery of Harry Gregg. And unfortunately passed away not too long ago, Harry Gregg. And you just look at it, obviously labelled, in my opinion, rightly so, the hero of Munich. But I do believe that those figures, Harry Gregg, Jimmy Murphy, the story of Sir Bobby Charlton and Sir Matt Busby in regards to what they did on the field success-wise in getting Manchester United back on track can't be overlooked. But, it's interesting. But Stephen here's saying, in regards to going back to the service and memorial discussion I was having, allow the fans to have some time with the players after the memorial, but let everyone be united for United and participate as one. For me, Munich is a way for the club as a whole, fans, players and staff and owners, Glazers. Actually, well, not this year because the anniversary is here and so Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos aren't technically involved yet. Is it going to look different next year? Maybe. We'll see on Ineos. But owners to remember that football is about people and experiences of life, not rules, regulations, dollars and cents. Yeah, look, football is very... I think that was a brilliant part of the film in regards to looking back, and football was different. Now, there was a business element to it as well. It was fascinating when Jimmy Murphy came back into Manchester United offices. There was these ladies in regards to secretaries. And he's saying, we can't afford the secretaries. What are we doing? Who hired these ladies? But it wasn't that they weren't hired. They were coming in as volunteers. And I just think, while that worked and the volunteers came in and helped Manchester United, it was Jimmy Murphy, in terms of his football mind and Manchester United business mind, was saying, hang on, we can't afford these people. Well, Manchester United is a business. It is a football club, but even then, you did obviously have to look at the finances. So, at its core, it's a football club. But even back then, those things had to be sort of met, unfortunately. But not sure there's any other things. I could go through all the players. Eddie Coleman, Roger Byrne, Jeff Bent, David Begg, Tommy Taylor. Actually, Tommy Taylor, there was something on the Manchester United website I was reading through a little bit earlier just in regards to one of those stats. I might bring it up here if I can find it. Just in regards to Tommy Taylor, obviously a fantastic goal scorer, and you look at his goals to game ratio, I don't have it in front of me, but in regards to the trajectory he was on, we talk about Ruud van Nistelrooy and his goals, Wayne Rooney, Sir Bobby Charlton, Tommy Taylor. It wouldn't be a competition. It wouldn't be a competition. The amount of goals he would have scored would have been off the chart, and he was got sort of really on track to do that. And he's obviously wasn't afforded that opportunity. But I think there was an interesting one here in regards to, I'll bring it up here, this on the Manchester United website that put a piece together sort of on each player. But this is Tommy Taylor, the goal scorer in United's 1956-57 title winning season. I think a lot not to forget, but we obviously remember Manchester United went on and not win the FA Cup final that season against Bolton Wanderers. Did make the final, but we remember not winning the FA Cup final. This was the team of champions, obviously in the Champions League, or back then European Cup, but you had to win it. You had to win your domestic league. So Manchester United were the champions of England at the time. We did win it in 56-57. Tommy was the team's top scorer with a remarkable 34 goals in 45 games. So that's across all competitions. So you look at that, 34 goals. If someone scores 34 goals now, you're across all competitions, player of the season, PFA Writers Award, all these things, Premier League player of the season, of course. We played 60, 70 games, or at least sort of 55, 60 games across the Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, etc. So do 34 in 45 games is incredible achievement. So and especially back then in regards to definitely a different game. But he's saying no wonder Matt Busby refused Inter Milan's then astronomical offer of £65,000 for the striker. Taylor was not for sale at any price. And again, Stephen was talking a little bit earlier just then in regards to the business element. And we never really think of the transfer market when we look back at sort of the Busby Babes era and that era of football. You don't really think of transfers and big money signing sort of thing, but it did happen and there were transactions. And but £65,000, then it's defined as astronomical. £65,000 for us now. What's that? That's if Kobbie Mainoo signs a new contract in the next year, he will go on minimum £65,000 a week. This was Inter Milan trying to buy the best striker in the world. So it's amazing. This is across all business and life, of course, in regards to inflation. But you look at the difference in finances. £65,000 a week, £65,000 transfer for the best striker in the world at the time. What would that be now? If you go to sign Erling Haaland, let's say Real Madrid went in for Erling Haaland now, you'd be looking at 265 million. I think that would, in my opinion, just off the top of my head, you'd be looking well over 200 million. Stephen Macon here, 65k per annum, and Tom Simpson wages for mopping the floor. But Inter Milan as well. That's interesting in regards to, I always read that and talk about and find fascinating I wouldn't say scouting department, but the knowledge of Europe. And so Matt Busby obviously has a huge part to play in that in regards to he was at the forefront of moving Manchester United into Europe. But we think about players then, okay, a player from London or from Manchester. The other English clubs knowing about them, the transfers between English clubs, families will want to get up and move across Europe sort of thing. But football teams in Italy knew about football teams in England. Teams in England knew about teams in Brazil. There was one player who I do believe was rumoured. I don't say rumoured. I'm sure there weren't rumours at the time. I'm sure there were concrete information this is happening or not happening. But I believe there was interest from Santos in Brazil with one of the Manchester United players. I forget who it was. Was it Eddie Coleman? I forget. I'd have to sort of go back and do a little bit of reading. But could you imagine in the 50s a player moving from Manchester over to Rio de Janeiro to play some football? Like, you can't fathom that, but that was sort of what was happening. It was the sort of first steps that are laid by Sir Matt Busby in regards to sort of forging Manchester United into Europe. And we love and hate this club. At the moment, it's more hate, unfortunately, in regards to the stress they cause us and the frustration they give us. But deep down, it's because we love the club. And I do go back and look at everything around this and the stories and the moments and the characters and the meaning and the football, etc. It is back then before we were watching football, all of us. This is the reason, though, we do support the club and the reason we do love the club. And I always do find that a little bit weird because we do remember the players. Like, I don't remember sort of players from the 70s. I do remember players from the 90s and the early 2000s, though. I don't remember players from the 50s, of course. But it is the players from the 50s looking back as to why, or have laid the foundation for me to like the players in the 80s and the 90s, the early 2000s. It is because of what they did on and off the pitch. So I think that just sort of probably brings it to an end. Unfortunately, Larry's not with us for today's show. But I just want to also discuss, so I'm not sure how many are in the chat with us, but if you are still with us, do leave sort of your thoughts on this. Just in regards, and I do believe it sort of ties in nicely in regards to this topic. These are the types of chats, whether it be Munich or something away from transfers and tactics. So let's say the Busby Babes or looking at a player's career. When we did start the podcast in its audio days, we'd do a sort of looking back at a player's career, Roy Keane's career or Brian Robson's career or Eric Cantona's situation, or look at discussions around you could have around Manchester United at the moment in regards to Old Trafford. We could sit down and have a discussion around Old Trafford. Do you rebuild it? Do you knock it down? Do you revamp it? Where would Manchester United play? They're all sort of discussions I really like to have. I would like to have a discussion on the Manchester United youth team and what they're doing in the academy setup. I'd like to have a chat on what the women's setup is looking like and how they're playing and the growth there. There's so many discussions around Manchester United which I want to have. Unfortunately, though, on YouTube, it's just not. They don't sort of. There's no relationship between the two in regards to. I don't want to say success, and I don't look at Larry and I sort of don't look at the numbers too much in regards to subscribers and views, etc. But you're only natural if you do, and you look at chats like this. I know there won't be many people tuned into this one because this is not about Mason Greenwood. It's not about Kylian Mbappe. It's not about sacking the manager. And unfortunately, those are the videos on YouTube which are sort of successful, and they do get out there and they sort of stem more discussion and generate a little bit more interest, and there is a natural growth. And again, it's not so much about the growth for me in this. It is about sort of enjoyment 100%. But I do feel myself having to... I hated last week going in on Marcus Rashford. Hated it. But just in regards to getting the video out there and people engaged and sort of tuning into it, you have to, unfortunately, even subconsciously, I don't mean to do it, but I find myself writing a thumbnail or writing a title that Marcus Rashford is a disgrace sort of thing. And that's not me as a Manchester United fan, but you feel just in regards to this YouTube space, that's kind of what happens. They reel you in to make that type of content. And look, my thoughts are honest in regards to that, in regards to I'm very critical of Marcus Rashford, and that will sort of never sort of go away in regards to if a player deserves criticism, they're going to get criticism. But I do look at sort of like big channels and sort of big sort of aggregators and content creators and the stuff I don't like to see them do. It's kind of way on the obviously the smaller scale, but taking sort of small steps in that direction. And that's what, unfortunately, in my opinion, is sort of the 2 or 3 years experience we do have of it, is what YouTube sort of facilitates. And I honestly, just in regards to the chats I do want to have, and sort of, again, I'm always going to be critical of players, of course, but I want to have chats like this. I want to have a chat about, as I said, the youth team. But on YouTube, they just don't go out there. And the more videos you have that sort of don't really go out there and sort of get to all your listeners in regards to the algorithm, your next videos aren't really going to get out there as much. And while I do not care about the growth and subscribers and all that, you're just only natural. You think, hang on, this video got 1,000 views, but this video got 60 views. What's the difference? I enjoyed this chat a hell of a lot more. This video I didn't really like doing because I was throwing this player under the bus, and that's not really me. So I'm just in regards to that enjoyment level, just one of the things I'm thinking, and again, not making hard and sort of fast decisions, but just in regards to the future of the podcast, and obviously it is time consuming doing this, and I do enjoy doing it. I would be just toying with the idea, and again, thoughts in the chat, email me or message me privately, etc., on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, or in the comments section, potentially, just sort of maybe going back to sort of a weekly podcast, audio-only podcast, because I do believe an audio-only podcast, someone who will take the time to download an episode and put it on in their car on their way to work, etc., is the type of person who would consume content like that, like a chat about Munich, like a chat about the Busby Babes, like a chat about Eric Cantona or Brian Robson, or a look back at David Beckham's career. I think on YouTube, everything we put out there, unfortunately, is designed to capture the eyes of someone who wants to talk about Jadon Sancho or Mason Greenwood, who's United's best right-wing option. And those discussions we do have, naturally have, and discussions I would obviously keep at the forefront of any potential audio podcast in the future. But those types of chats, I just think it's more my style, just in regards to enjoyment. I obviously definitely love doing this with Larry and with everyone in the chat, but sometimes I just halfway through a chat sort of throw Marcus Rashford under the bus, and then me being critical of maybe a bigger channel or a big account on Twitter, sort of think, well, I am doing things a little bit differently. I know my toys aren't being thrown out of the pram. I'm not going to say anything that I regret in the future, but also we're putting something out there on social media that a player could come. They're obviously not coming across, but technically they could. And I just think an audio podcast allows a little bit of a, not more level-headed, I think we're very level-headed in regards to the way we do this, but a step back away from the dramatization of what, unfortunately, social media unfortunately does entail or does require to, again, not success, but, just natural progression. You do want to see, we've been on 1,900 subscribers for a while. You think, God, can we get to 2,000? How's this account on 10,000 followers? How's this guy got 20,000? And we can't get another 50 to 2,000. Now, I'm not losing any sleep over not getting another 50, but you just think, it unfortunately drains on you. You think, why? I believe Larry and I believe everyone in the chat as well. So the content is good. People do keep coming back, but we've got a core who keep coming back. How can you make that step of bringing new faces in and sort of new subscribers? And unfortunately, the answer to that is Eric Ten Hag out, sack the manager. He's a disgrace, sort of thing. Marcus Rashford, get out of my club. Those are the eyes you will catch. And just me as a Manchester United fan, looking back at the Busby Babes, Munich, reasons we do support the club, in my opinion, that's more me as a Manchester United fan than sort of the flashing lights of what it currently sort of looks like on Twitter, social media, YouTube, etc. So, yeah, just that last 5 minutes is sort of what's rattling off in my brain in regards to the future of the podcast, because it is time consuming. Been doing it for a while, and Manchester United has made it extremely stressful. Maybe I'd have different views. If Manchester United will beat West Ham 3-0 every week, maybe it would be a little bit easier. But yeah, just my thoughts. So if you do have any chats or any opinions, thoughts, change the podcast to this, or do the podcast like this, or continue, or stop it and do this. I'm an open book. So hit me with it. Steve here, you need to keep reflecting on where we are, Tom. Not always easy, but you bring good with the bad. Other people speaking about the club omit it or something, or smother the good in favour of the bad balance. Yeah, I'd like to keep it balanced, but I miss Get the Smatter a podcast on Spotify. Yeah, look, I do think just as well, as I said, I don't want to just cater to Stephen and I, some of the older heads, but I do think, as I said, the type of chats I do want to have around the youth team. I want to do a show on Shay Lacey sort of thing. If I did a show on Shay Lacey on YouTube, 4 people would tune in. Who the hell is Shay Lacey? But obviously a very exciting product. I've just seen Phil Foden score a hat-trick. I believe he is the next Phil Foden. He's coming through Manchester United's ranks at the moment. But I do believe a podcast audience is far more inclined to sit down and go out of their way to listen to that and enjoy that and consume that content, far more enjoyable than what we're unfortunately going to need on YouTube. As said, you're going to need Jadon Sancho or Greenwood. Let's run a poll. Who do you want to see replace Anthony? They're the videos that sort of generate the most interest, which they are discussions we're going to continue to have, like we all will. But I just feel that the feeling that gives me is just always starting to become a little bit uneasy, in my opinion. So that's just my thoughts around the podcast. Obviously, it's not what it was. COVID's probably played a huge part in that, in regards to the way that has changed things. Now, obviously, we're out of COVID, but in terms of just the impact that had, moving everyone's forward in their social lives, etc. So, look, the podcast will be back. Obviously, I'm not sure. We've got a busy week at work, and it's a while before Manchester United plays. So do stay tuned to the socials. Maybe Larry might put out a video or two. Fingers crossed. A bit of solo content. So, as I said, any thoughts? Leave in the comments. Message me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. if you follow me on there. And also, just pay your respects to those who lost their lives 66 years ago in the Munich air disaster, the Busby Babes, and to just go back and take this day. Don't have to be today. You can do it tomorrow, of course, but go back and just do half an hour's worth of research and just look back. I guarantee you, while some of it or all of it is sad, you do feel better for it. You do feel a little bit closer to Manchester United after you do it, and I should do more in regards to it. There's a hell of a lot I don't know about and I do want to know about, and I do need to put more of an effort in. But you do feel better when you do go back, and I believe paying your respects is research and looking at clips, photos, etc. So go do it. But until then, please do leave a like on the video, not just for me, but obviously the Busby Babes. Hit subscribe if you're new. We would like to hit 2,000 subscribers before I make a sort of hard and fast decision on the future. Would be a nice little milestone to hit. But those are my thoughts in regards to sort of go into a sort of a weekly audio only podcast, and still discussing all the transfers and tactics and match reviews, etc. But being able to discuss more sort of Manchester, Old Trafford rebuild it or revamp, and I don't think that discussion suited YouTube. So that is my thinking. So get in touch. But hopefully you did enjoy that. Leave a like on your way out. Let me know all your thoughts, and we'll be back with some type of content in the near future, I'm sure. But have a good day or evening wherever you are, and we'll chat to you in a bit. Cheers.